Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com, shop there today, and make yourself look good. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. It is going to be a fantastic show today. We have author and UFO researcher Preston Dennett joining us, the great Preston Dennett. Hours 1 and 2. Also, we have, as you already know, Steve Stockton tells Untold Missing Person Mysteries, and Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap up for Hour 3. It's going to be an awesome show. Let me go ahead and jump in the chat and see who has come in first. We got the information. We got the lowdown, courtesy of Race Fan. Race Fan says, what Race Fan says goes, and he says tonight it is himself, Race Fan with the gold, Kitty Caddywhack with the silver, and Dave Nuremberg with the bronze. As we go ahead and get ready to get into the show tonight, Kitty Caddywhack is here saying hi, Rob. Hi, Kitty Caddywhack. Appreciate you showing on up. Race Fan saying first stand as usual. Definitely appreciate you as well. We got David Nuremberg saying hi. I hope everybody got through any storms last night. Me as well. I was unaware. I'm out here, blissfully unaware out here on the West Coast where it's just been really hot. Let's see. Who else do we have? Robert Lamont Jr. saying, yo, appreciate you coming on in. Roger Murray saying happy U.S. Armed Forces Day to all men and women in the military. Definitely want to thank all our service members, men and women, for their service and support out here in these fields as well. Let's see, who else do we have? T-Bone in the building saying MRG, Mr. Rob G. Hi, Preston. Appreciate you showing on up tonight. Let's see. Who else do we have here? We got Mel WD-40 getting us all lubed up and ready for the show. As always, we got Frankie B in the building. We have Eternity Eternal. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you showing on up. Who else do we have? Let's get down the list. Move down the list. Let's move down the list. Paramarvelous is in the building. Also, Presidential Zaddy saying salute. Appreciate you coming in. Nick Atkins 10. Hello, everyone. Hello, Nick. Appreciate you showing up here tonight for a great show. Tarnation, what in Tarnation is here saying hello. Appreciate you showing on up here tonight. Jeff Garvey, I see you out there. Thanks for coming in. Amanda's Crazy Life channel. Love the intro so much, Rob. And we love that you're here to see that intro. Amanda, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate the love and support. Cielo Azul, I see you out there. Thanks for coming in. The Mac Geek. Who else do we have? Let's see. Tyler 420, I see you out there. Truth, let's see. I want to make sure I get this person here before we jump into the Truth Wave Energy Meditation. All right, we're going to start the podcast side of this real quick here. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We're going to have a fantastic show. We have UFO author, researcher, Preston Dennett, the great Preston Dennett in the building for hours 1 and 2. Also, we have Drew Banke with the After Hours wrap up, plus Steve Stockton Tells Untold Missing Person Mysteries in hour 3. Jam-packed show. Don't go anywhere. We're going to get it started right about now. Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You've just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I am your host, Mr. Rob G. And tonight, we're broadcasting on our terrestrial affiliates across North America, plus digitally on digital platforms all around the world. Don't forget, you can access our archives for absolutely free, zero, at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow us on X and Instagram at Spaced Out Radio. That's Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with the SR Newswire. You can get yourself some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, you can listen to the man that you hear right there, Mr. Ron Bomo-Fithal, and so much more. It's going to be a fantastic show. We have researcher, author, Preston Dennett joining us tonight for hours 1 and 2. Drew Banke with After Hours wrap up in hour 3, along with Steve Stockton Tells Untold Missing Person Mysteries. It's going to be a jam-packed show, action-packed show. Make sure that you guys do not go anywhere as we get ready to jump right into the show, as we always do, and bring in the man. He's been here many times, and we love to have him each and every single time. Anytime we can get him on, we're definitely going to do that. None other than Mr. Preston Dennett. Hi, Preston. How are you tonight?
I'm doing good, Rob. Doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well, Preston. I'm doing well. And every time I get to speak to you, I'm like, man, this is a guy that really, has boots on the ground. He's out there trying to make a difference in the community and in the data that gets captured. And that's always what I fall back on. I can always appreciate someone that is dedicating their time, because time is money. And we only have so much time in each individual life, and to dedicate some of that to the benefit of others is always a W for me. So appreciate you doing that, Preston. And it's not like anyone doesn't know who you are, but if you wouldn't mind jumping back in the time machine and going back to what got Preston started in this.
Okay, it all began when my two parents got together. No, let's see. Well, I'm 5 of 6 kids, and I really thought everyone in my family was skeptical of UFOs. Turned out that wasn't true. I certainly was. That all changed when I was 21 years old. And I'm really lucky I was pretty young when I found out UFOs were real. It gave me some time to explore the subject. But it all changed for me on November 17, 1986. I'm sure you've heard of this case, Rob, of a JAL Airlines, Captain Kenji Torochi, flying over Alaska. Crazy case. It came on the news. And I remember they showed the pilot, Captain Torochi, and he's describing this giant UFO right in front of his commercial airliner. It appeared on radar. I mean, an amazing case. But they didn't give any of these details in the news report, just kind of laughed about it. But I remember thinking, this poor, crazy, deluded pilot thinks he saw UFOs. And my brother thinks he saw one too, because I remember years earlier, he came running to the house freaking out. He was probably 19, I'm 14 about. And he said he saw this thing at treetop level. I didn't believe him. I didn't listen. But hearing this report, I approached him. I'm like, Mark, tell me about that UFO you, quote, think you saw. He's like, I did see it. What are you talking about? And described this amazing, very much your classic flying saucer, a metallic disc, little dome on top, lights around it, hovering very low, right above the trees. And he chased it in his car. He's like, my two friends were with me. You know them, Phil and Greg. They were there. You should talk to them if you don't believe me. And I ended up talking to them, and they confirmed his story, gave a few new details. That's what got it all, rolling for me. I found out, oh gosh, a number of people in my family had seen UFOs, friends, people at work, and not just, sightings, but real close encounters, missing time, actual extraterrestrials. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it. I started buying every book I could find to disprove this subject and found out that no, it was real. There was a cover-up. So I joined MUFON within a year, quickly became a field investigator for them, took the test, and started interviewing people formally. For about 10 years, that's all. I just researched. Mind you, I'm working full time all this time, so it's taking a lot of my time. And I started writing articles for the local newspaper first, then UFO Universe magazine, the MUFON Journal, other UFO publications, and wrote about 30 or 40 articles when I decided I was going to write another article about UFO healing cases, because I just interviewed a lady who was healed of a tumor. And I remember there was a police officer who was healed by a beam of light, and another doctor in France, and someone in Peru. So I thought, this would make a good article. I found, Rob, like 30 cases right off the bat. Dug a little deeper, found like 50. I'm like, this is, I could write a book on this. So I did. I spent another year doing research and put together my first book in 1996 after 10 years of research. And after that, have not looked back. One book per year on the average, really focusing my research on people who've had direct contact, but having to cover all aspects of this, whether it's ghosts or levitation or Bigfoot or out-of-body experiences, all of it, because it's connected. So yeah, that first year was hard. I had a real hard time with it.
You paint a pretty good contrast. You mentioned, as you were talking about JLA Airlines and that case and the way that it was reported on the news, and I think we take for granted sometimes nowadays because it compared to what we used to get news wise, we're actually getting more nowadays. So you would think, okay, JLA was reported back in the 80s. They gave all this information, but you stated yourself that there was very little information given. What's the difference between then and now as far as the news reporting on sightings? And then if you can give us like an idea, some insight into how JLA was initially reported.
Yeah. Gosh, I'd like to say things have changed, from night to day, but not really. The news coverage is still very brief. It's almost always incomplete, usually slanted or fear-based or has inaccuracies. It's gotten a lot better. Don't get me wrong. They used to almost always bring on a skeptic, a debunker, really, and try to, kill both sides, so to speak, which is a little ridiculous. They don't do that with any other field of science. Like, well, here's someone who studies astronomy, and here's someone who says stars don't exist. I mean, come on. It makes no sense.
Were they airing that like right in the celebrity gossip part of the news, or like how seriously or not serious were they taking that case when they reported it?
It was, it was front page news. It was definitely one of the few UFO events. There would be a couple each year that kind of slipped past the censors or were just so well authenticated that it somehow made it into the mainstream news. But again, woefully incomplete. They never mentioned there was radar returns. They didn't mention that the FAA also picks it up on radar, which they later denied. They didn't say that Captain Kenju Torochi lost his job over this. All the radar evidence was covered up, in fact, for years until one of the guys actually who was involved in the incident had actually saved copies of it. Nowadays, there is a lot more interest in this subject. I mean, it's amazing to see it being covered in congressional circles, people seriously, talking about UFOs, knowing they're real. But back then, there was hardly any books on this subject. There were really UFO shows were just beginning to come out. Really, the only one I could think of was In Search Of. And that was a little bit even before that. But then shows like Encounters and Sightings and Unsolved Mysteries and all these other shows started airing this stuff. So that, the ends of the 1980s was when Communion came out. It's when Bud Hopkins' book Intruders came out, a book about Billy Meyer, Light Years by Gary Kinder, a mainstream journalist. So there was really an explosion of interest in the late 1980s, which really kind of carried this subject forward, but nowhere near what it's like today. It is taken a lot more seriously, but there's still a cover-up. We're still not seeing the Roswell craft. They're still not talking about most of the major UFO incidents in Congress. Roswell never happened as far as the government is concerned. It was a weather balloon to this day.
Your involvement in the subject, as I stated in the opening here, is pretty vast and detailed. You were in every documentary or every other documentary for 20 years straight. And, we all know how society looked at this with the stigma eye and ridicule. And so it almost seems like, because in my eyes, it seems like you're just as devoted or dedicated to the subject now as you were then. Although the outlook on what you were doing from the outside had to be a lot different. So I know, like within circles, you may have got laughed at, made fun of based on some of the things you were researching, but you haven't moved off of that, and you've continued to research in the same fashion all the way through today. How has that changed for you? How is your ability to present evidence and feel like you're being taken seriously? How has that changed over time as well?
Oh, it's definitely gotten steadily better. When I entered this field, it was not very welcoming. It was political, and it was a tough road in the beginning. I did get laughed at, absolutely ridiculed, attacked even by skeptics here and there. Well, I would call them debunkers. But I stuck to my guns. I learned very early on that this was real. It took me about 4 or 5 years to start having my own encounters. So it wasn't just me talking to people or reading books. I'm the kind of researcher who, like you say, boots on the ground, let's go. I want to see this myself. That helped a lot. And as the internet came into existence, that turned out to be a really good tool, not only for researching, but for educating people and reaching out. I had a website very early on, before most people did. At that time, it was getting like 30,000 hits a month.
Wow.
And it was a very crude website. But yeah, since there weren't really anyone else out there having UFO websites, it did well. It's now definitely a lot easier now that I've gotten, all my research tools. I was able to kind of build my own database, because there was a lot of stuff out there. I started to realize I'm not so sure how trustworthy some of this stuff is. I was real naive. I had no idea that the cover-up was as brutal and vicious as it truly is, and that there were paid disinformation agents So I kind of had to step back because I came into this field thinking, well, wow, this is bad news for us. ETs are coming down and kidnapping people and experimenting on them, and this is bad. And that turned out not to be fully accurate. While these encounters, people being taken on board, is absolutely real, it was painted in a very fear-based, slanted way. A lot of cherry picking and shoe fitting, a lot of people pushing narratives. So it took me a while to, unpack what was going on here. And I started to like, I just need to build my own database. And that's what I've been doing over the years, just interviewing people myself and trying to figure out the truth of what's going on here. And I think now we've got a pretty good handle on it. Researchers specifically who focus on onboard experiences, I would point to people like Barbara Lamb or Kathleen Marden. Everyone plays a role. I love Michael Schratt. He's doing amazing work. Linda Zimmerman, her research into the Hudson Valley Wave was amazing. So there's some really good researchers out there, but I miss the old school folks, like Jim and Coral Lorenzen, Donald Kehoe, J. Allen Hynek, of course, Dr. James McDonald, very objective, good researcher. Those guys are my heroes. Really loved the way they did their research. So the old school, the old guard has kind of died off at this point. Now I've got a lot of people in it to make a buck, in it, for the fame and glory, or, even to perhaps not for the right reasons. So in some ways it's a lot easier. In some ways it's a little bit of a sticky mess.
Wow. Yeah, I could definitely see and understand both sides of that. I know last time we talked, we kind of delved into some of that, and we'll definitely get back into talking about that because I think it's very important, old guard versus new guard and responsibilities that can't be spoken to enough. So we'll definitely end up talking about that. But what on your come up, starting from when you first started researching, obviously you come across skeptics that laugh about the work that you're doing. Have along your journey, it's been over 30 years, have you had a moment where you have had one of those original skeptics either convert themselves and come back to you and say, whoa, Preston, I was wrong, I saw some stuff? Or have you seen any transformation within individuals who may have been, I guess, on either side that said either, hey, yes, this stuff was real, and now says, no, it's not, or the vice versa? Have you ran into any of that over your 30 years? And could you talk about a moment where, because it has to be validating if you have had that happen?
Oh yeah, certainly it's happened. It's not common, I would say, that someone I met years ago or something like, you were right. But certainly, within my own family, I had a lot of, two of my brothers were vehemently skeptical, and I turned them around. I wouldn't preach. If you push too hard, they will push back and get angry. So I kind of learned to just, pick my moments. I remember at one point there was a wave of sightings over Topanga Canyon in 1992. And I was interviewing a lot of people. I had like 30 witnesses to one night of UFO activity. These were separate witnesses who didn't know each other. And it turned out the police were receiving calls and they record everything. Well, that police tape was snuck out of the police station, given to the editor of the newspaper, who gave it to me. So I had these firsthand calls to the police station, which I played for my brother. And he turned a little pale and he's like, well, maybe you're right. Maybe there is something to this. And my other brother secretly, he got drunk one night and he's like, oh yeah, I totally believe you. And what I found, and this was really interesting, because I worked full time at a business office, and people would roll their eyes at me and kind of snicker behind my back. I was totally aware of it. There was talk. And then privately, they'd come into my office because I had my own little office. I worked my way up in this company to where, I had a pretty good position. And they'd like, can I talk to you a second? And they'd look around and close the door. They said, I know I told you I didn't believe in this stuff, but something happened to me and I've always wondered about it. And they would describe a typical UFO sighting. They'd be like, here we go. People are keeping secrets. They don't want to be looked at as a UFO nut. I had a really good friend, same thing. He's like, I think I may have seen one. I'm like, Neil, we've known each other for 20 years. You're just telling me now? And described, a basic star-like object, but it stopped, it turned at right angles, it zipped across the sky. It wasn't anything conventional. And yeah, I think as time goes on, people who are skeptical are now really taking a different look at things, as this is being talked about in Congress. As our own government has actually admitted there's truth to this subject. So I can always kind of hold that in front of people who laughed at me. And there were a lot of them. I put up with some vicious, I still do, real vicious ridicule on social media. Saying, show me the proof or it didn't happen, which is a ridiculous statement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because imagine if you're sitting there and you go behind a bush and you see a lion and come running back and say, well, there's a lion there. And the guy says, photograph or it didn't happen. You go behind that bush, get your head bitten off. It's a ridiculous thing to say because there is evidence for this. It's difficult to ferret out, but some of these debunking explanations just make the hair on my back of my neck stick up.
And it's I agree with you, Preston, and I got to say it to me it appears like and just like you stated earlier, you take the fact that the government has admitted that these things are real as a talking point. And one of the things that kind of brought me into the field was a statement I saw on the news where they said that the government has proof of off-world vehicles. They use off-world vehicles. That enough right there was enough for me to kind of be like, what? Off-world vehicles, pretty explanational, as far as what it is they're trying to convey, the message. So that got me in. But, when I'm looking into it, because what happened for me is I delved deep into the history of ufology going all the way back. And I saw numerous things that you were involved with, a lot of different documentaries. To me, it seems like documentaries were more effective at one point. Do you still see the benefit of doing documentaries? Do we need more documentaries, or what do you think we need to get that message out there?
Yeah, I think they're one of the more effective tools to getting to the truth of the matter. Because let's face it, you can go on some of these UFO shows, and I was interviewed for almost 3 days on deep sea UFOs, and ended up having maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes airtime, which is pretty typical for many of the shows I've been on. And occasionally, they will devote a full segment, but that's still 10 minutes. I like, a full-length documentary where you can really dive deep and focus on a specific subject. Like Randall Nickerson's The Aerial Phenomena. That was a good one. It's not often. I also liked, that one by John Yost, Alien Abduction Answers.
Yes.
Which allowed the witnesses to just tell their firsthand story. I think they're much more effective than some of these shows, which go from story to story, and are I think kind of in it for the money a little bit more than getting to the truth of what's going on here.
Kind of just putting some content out there.
Love the documentaries, and boy, I'd love to do one on just schoolyard UFO encounters, because I got 100, or just UFO healing cases.
We're going to stop right there with Preston Dennett. He'll be joining us back on the other side of the break right here on the After Hours radio show on Spaced Out Radio. Make sure you guys don't move a muscle. Make sure you come back if you do. We'll see you in just a minute. are clear. And yeah, we obviously, Preston, we got 5 minutes on camera right now. You can do anything you need to do. We're going to make sure, though, that we're promoting here Preston Connect with Preston. Here are his social media handles: YouTube, Facebook, on the web at weebly.com, and on X as well. Paramarv went ahead and hooked that up. Appreciate you, Paramarv. Also, Kim Jellin says, subscribed to Preston's YouTube channel. And you guys should all go do the same. Preston has a lot of awesome content going on over there with him and Dolly, with the Lightgate podcast, as well as a lot of the videos that Preston drops on there. We're going to definitely talk about some of those as well. And hey, when do you have Preston here for questions, guys? Make sure you ask really good questions. I'll be keeping an eye out for them. Make sure you put them in caps, and we'll ask them at the end of the second hour, on the back half of the second hour. So that, and then also say hey to some people that we missed earlier, which is Julie Dawn. Julie, appreciate you giving a link there. Appreciate you doing that. And thanks for coming in. Also, Samantha Shaw. On Fridays, Preston has his regular weekly upload, and on Mondays, I think it's him and Dolly Saffron, live with a different guest each week. Then sometimes I notice a different live on Wednesday. Well, there you go. There you go. Make sure you guys hit the notification bell as well so you know when he goes live. Also, let's see. T-Bone. I don't know if I said hi to you earlier, T-Bone, but hello. Appreciate showing on up. Also, moving back, Izzy Beth. Long time. I haven't seen that name in a while, Izzy Beth. Appreciate you. Thanks for coming in, as well as Miss Tessa Marie, who said, I saw Preston Dennett. Yep. So glad I caught this live stream with Preston. He's the man. That's what I'm talking about. Thoroughly in Clodag. Appreciate showing on up. Thanks for coming in. Let's see. Moving back, anyone else I may have missed earlier? Tyler 420, I got you earlier. Let's see. Cosmic Joe, always saying Rob misses me. Rob, he doesn't pay attention to me. I'm paying attention to you, Cosmic Joe Chronicles. Right here, you're in the building. Cosmic Joe is here, everyone. Let's see. What else do we have here?
You see a couple familiar names. There's Chris Teen.
Chris Teen. Yeah. Thanks for coming on in, Christine. Flubber Lane. Appreciate you showing up. And who else do we have? Lyle Campbell. Appreciate you.
John Callahan. Yeah, that's the guy who had the radar returns from the JAL Airlines.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank God for him, because he proved that case hands down.
Let's see. J True Seeker. I think you were on a show earlier. I want to say you were. I'll have to go and check you out. I think you're on Element 115, maybe, potentially. Let's see. Miss Mary. Hey, Miss Mary. Thanks for showing up. Let's see. Joey Glowy. Where's Dolly? She is there. She is in the building. Dave, Rob G, Spaced Out Radio. Hey, Dave. Creepypasta 560. Appreciate you showing up. Kufunya Life or Kufunya Ife. I hope I said it right, but appreciate you coming on in. Yep. And then David Nuremberg was talking earlier. We were talking about someone said there was bad weather somewhere in the United States. definitely prayers to anybody out in bad weather. I hope tornado weather, especially. You never know. It's nighttime usually when those hit. Make sure you guys stay safe out there. It says a tornado hit right down the street, damaging over 5,000 homes so far that they're aware of. I'm glad I moved away from Oklahoma, back to California, but we have to deal with earthquakes here, so I didn't really get away. I just kind of took on a different stress, but healing energy and all that goes out to you guys being affected in the bad weather areas. We got about five seconds here before we come back. Let's go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, back with Preston Dennett, author, researcher, the legend, the guy. You've seen him on everything. I'm telling you, you have. If you haven't, you're not watching enough documentaries on the subject, and I recommend that you guys do. You can hop in our archive. He's on a lot of shows here, spacedoutradio.com, on YouTube, as we jump right back in to the conversation here. So, I had done a show recently, Preston. It was a pre-recorded show. I'm trying to get into some pre-recorded stuff. And I had done a show kind of modeled after some of the stuff that you do. So I picked the video title and I said, okay, what would be interesting? I said, thinking about Preston's content, I'm like, okay, how about 5 times that aliens may have attempted contact with humanity? And I'm like, okay, this is perfect. I can bring this up with Preston on the show. Are there some sightings out there? If you had to pick 5, and I'm sure you have way more than that, 5 times where we may have overlooked extraterrestrials attempting contact with humanity.
I don't know that anyone's ever asked me that before. I am not sure I would call these. I mean, one very obvious example immediately comes to mind is the 1952 flyover of the United States Capitol, which to me was such an obvious display where they intentionally showed themselves to people. And I think really tried to make a step forwards towards diplomacy. I mean, what more logical place? It's almost cliche. Why don't UFOs land on the White House lawn? People, skeptics will often ask that. And here we have them practically doing that, and may have actually done that if we hadn't given them such a hostile response. To me, that is really open, outward attempt to say, we're here. And another one.
The awesome thing, before you go to the next one, I just want to make everybody, and they should be aware here, but that was one of my 5, Preston. So we're doing awesome here, and if these all line up, I'm gonna be elated. But go ahead. What was your next one?
Another that comes to mind is the Malmstrom incident of 1967 March, where UFOs came down over Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. Basically shut down multiple intercontinental ballistic missiles, all separate systems. You can't really just knock one down and have them go in the domino effect. These are all independently, run. And they came over and shut each one of them down. To me, that could not have been a more clear display, a very clear message, basically underlining what they've been telling so many contactees for decades, that our use of nuclear weapons is a mistake and very dangerous, and that they have the ability to stop them. So I think that's another really good example of, that's undeniable. Yeah. I mean, seriously, I know our government has to know about this, because anything nuclear is a big deal. And when I heard them on Congress asked about the Malmstrom incident, the heads of defense, or their names Moultrie and Daley.
Yeah.
They were asked specifically about the Malmstrom incident, and their response is, we have no reporting on this. I almost threw something at the TV. Lie. No, I don't believe you for a darn second. So to me, that was another really good in your face. We're here. encounter.
Okay, that's two. What would you pick for your third?
I would pick, I'm torn between the Ariel Elementary School incident or the Westall High School incident in Melbourne, Australia. Both very much similar. You know, I'm going to go with Westall because it's Australia's most widely viewed encounter. There was 300 students and teachers. The things landed there. There were landing traces. There were planes flying around these objects. The military showed up immediately after this incident, threatened students, took them alone into offices without their parents. This should not be legal. I don't know how they got away with this, and threatened them and effectively covered up this incident for a number of years. But now it's continued to be talked about. I think most of these schoolyard encounters are a very clever way to announce presence. And that one was so undeniable.
And I gotta say about that, I did pick both Westall. I picked them both because I was like, those are literally two. How can you pick one, right? Because they both, I think the weight of both of those encounters, like, dude, they're sitting in front of a group of humans. Not only that, but kids and adults in the middle of the day. It's like, how could you not interpret that as potential contact moment? But just one, okay, we're doing good. So go ahead. So that was number three. What would you pick it for?
All right. Here's one that I think probably slips under most people's radar. I love this one because it is crazy. This one occurred in France. October, November of 1954, there was a wave of sightings that involved over 1,000 sightings, but a couple of hundred landings and humanoid encounters. This was an incredibly intense, absolutely unprecedented wave of encounters that there's been nothing like it before or since. It was aligning very closely with the creation of CERN and perhaps our own work into anti-gravity. There's some interesting correlations there that might point towards why this happened then and there. But a truly, absolutely, unbelievably undeniable, super intense wave of encounters that really should be getting far more attention. It absolutely woke up the French government. They know for sure that this is real because the number of cases was off the charts. I mean, the country was in a frenzy at this time, and nothing like that has ever happened since. That was, again, a really undeniable series of events.
See, that more is more of a wave, it sounds like. Was there one incident within that wave that was like a mass sighting, like done on, in front of just an undeniable group of people?
Well, there was the angel hair incident over Oloron School where they put down a whole. Well, now that you mention it, there was one in Italy over a soccer match in 19. Oh gosh, was this 57? Yeah, I think it was 57 thereabouts. Don't quote me, but this was cited by a crowd of like 10, 20,000 people. It released volumes of angel hair. It was a very widely viewed sighting, like the Fatima incident in 1918. 40,000 people saw that one. Wow. That might be another incident I would put up there. But yeah, that one over a soccer match in Italy, just type that in, UFO soccer match Italy. You will see that this was a very widely viewed event, which they had to know what they were doing. I mean, this had to be intentional.
Right.
Yeah, I can think of a bunch now. Another that comes to mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is Cumberbatch, Turkey, 2006, 7, and 8. This was basically 3 separate incidents, but it was the same area, the same guy filming this UFO over the water in Cumberbatch, Turkey. This footage has been studied extensively. It was initially didn't get near enough publicity, in my opinion, but it's still circulating. It's excellent footage. People have tried so hard to debunk it. Some have called it a cruise ship, which is absolutely absurd. If you look at this, I think it's some of the best footage that we have out there, honestly. And the Turkish government studied it intensely and came away convinced, as did Jacques Vallée and, oh gosh, Dr. Roger Lear, who was there during one of the filming incidents. That is another really good example of what I would call a display, an intentional event. I think they're putting forth a little bit of a publicity campaign, very carefully orchestrated, and announcing their presence. And that was a good one.
And so looking at that, so you and I agree with you. These are events or encounters where it would appear that the ultimate goal of the extraterrestrials was to hopefully make contact within that moment. And as you talked about before, the standard is, oh, we need these aliens to land on the White House lawn. Well, when you have the equivalent sightings like we just mentioned here, because I picked Ariel School, I picked Westall School, I picked UFOs over DC, I picked the Phoenix Lights. I picked Phoenix Lights.
I had a feeling you were going to say that one. Yep.
And then I actually threw in there because, hey, why not? Because we still haven't figured it out yet. Was the New Jersey drone situation? Because my question ended up being, if we determine down the line that was a mostly anomalous encounter, yeah, there were some definitely man-made things there, but there was definitely an anomalous element, which a lot of people feel. Could it be a moment where, or one of the most recent examples of a moment where extraterrestrials have attempted to say, hey, we're here, let's contact, let's talk, and then we kind of let it go? Because the problem for me is that even if you take the earliest sighting there, you're going back 50, 60 years, that would mean that they have attempted within the last 50, 60 years, at least 5, maybe more times, to make contact with humanity. And if that's the case, then it is sort of sad because humanity kind of saw it and then moved on. So it's like, where is the real line at? What is going to be the real moment? What is it going to actually take for most people to see it for what it was, which was an attempt to contact humanity? And I don't know, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, I think any intelligent person who has the courage to examine the huge worldwide database of encounters can only come away convinced. If some of these events had happened today, when so many people have cell phone cameras, it would be game over. I mean, look this up. This is crazy. November 1957, the week after Sputnik, one of the most intense waves in world history. It is unbelievable. There was one day that must have been 20, 30, 40 encounters all over the world. Lots of cars being stopped on the road, craft landing. I would also point to October of 1973. They called 1973 the year of the humanoids. And I tell you, October was off the charts. There's so many major cases in 1973.
Can you give us some examples from that wave?
Oh gosh, there was probably my favorite was the Jeff Greenhaw of Falkville, Alabama, a police officer who received a call from a lady who said a UFO was over her house, went out there, didn't see the UFO, but ended up seeing a humanoid. And he whipped out his Polaroid camera and took 4 photographs. And you can find these quite easily on the internet. I think they're one of the very, very few legit photographs of humanoids. People have tried to debunk this as being a fireman in a fire suit, which is ridiculous if you listen to Jeff Greenhaw's testimony and look at what actually happened to him. He started receiving death threats. They His house burned down, lost his job, wife left him, he was chased out of town, and nobody knows whatever came of him. Gosh, there were some other really famous incidents involving humanoids that got a lot of publicity around that time. I have to think on that for a second, but there are several others.
Yeah, it's just, when you look at it that way, it's like you have to ask yourself, what more do these extraterrestrials have to do to make their presence known? Like, what more do they have to do? Is it literally going to take a moment on live? Does it have to be on live TV potentially, where something lands and then something gets out? Like, I'm trying to find out what the standard is going to be on what we will consider contact. What is it going to take for it to be deemed contact? And when if we look at, once again, the New Jersey drone situation, if that's determined to be related at all to extraterrestrials, then it's like, how much more bolder do you get than sitting on top of a city for 2 months straight, night in, night out, before someone says, that's weird. Let's look more into that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how you walk away from the New Jersey drone situation, what your thoughts are, but my whole thing is that whatever it is, if it's going to sit up there for 2 months straight, and the best thing that we could do is kind of get concerned about it, but then go away for the holidays and come back thinking about something else, it just concerns me on how human beings as a whole will or will not accept the extraterrestrial presence. How do you think it happens? How do you think the one moment happens where everyone realizes that there's something going on?
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to take. I mean, there are people who are just so dead set skeptical, who have been basically victimized by the UFO cover up, which has been really effective. I mean, our governments have spent an enormous amount of time, money, and energy. It's been a very concerted and brutal disinformation campaign and cover up of UFO evidence, and painting all witnesses as crazy, and basically explaining every UFO incident as a result of hoax, hallucination, misperception, or mental illness. I bought into that party line for years until I found out it was wholly untenable. You cannot explain the vast majority of cases by this, but people still believe this to this day. I think the ETs could very easily just come down in massive numbers and end the cover up overnight. And they haven't done this, which begs the question why. And talking to contactees, ETs have basically said, we're not ready for that, that would cause major disruptions. They're not here to brutalize people's belief systems and force them to, consider something that they're not ready to believe in. But what they have done is shown themselves in a way over and over and over again to small groups of people, and sometimes large, sometimes, one-on-one, sometimes a whole lot of people, provided enough incidents. I mean, there's a database that's more than 1 million encounters worldwide. MUFON and Newfork alone have some 250 documented cases. You can say perhaps not all of these are investigated, not all are necessarily UFOs, but this is just 2 databases. I'm not talking about APRO or QFOS or NICAP. I'm not talking about all, France has several organizations, England, all the major countries have UFO reporting centers. There are 1 million documented encounters at the very minimum. How much is it gonna take? It's absurd. In my mind, ETs have already done their part. It's up to us. They've done what they could. It's up to us to objectively take a look at all these incidents and decide for ourselves and fight this cover up, fight the disinformation campaign. Our best tool for this is knowledge, education. They have done their part. The rest is up to us. That's the way I see it. because they're not going to come down and cause society to collapse and completely, upend economics and business and religion and all of this stuff, science. I think they know better than that. That's not their goal. Their goal is to simply announce their presence in a way that is as gentle as possible, but also effective. So I kind of feel for them. And I have some sympathy for the military too, because from a military perspective, this has got to freak them out. We have stuff flying around that they can't control, that they don't know precisely who this is. I think they know now. I think they know for sure they're not here to take over. Anyone can take a look at the evidence and say they're not here to take over. Carla Turner, who took a pretty negative viewpoint towards all this, says, no, they're not here to take over. There's no evidence of that. They would have done that by now. So I think humanity doesn't have to worry about that. And I think the military knows that. I think the cover-up is the problem. It's our own governments, our own intelligence agencies. These are the ones we have to start asking to be accountable. And that's, I think, one of the cutting edges of UFO research is, get the crash retrieval incidents out into the open air. Let's have truth and transparency within government on this subject. And then I think we're much more likely to have open official contact. But it's not going to happen until we have peace on Earth, until we stop committing genocide, until we stop destroying our planet, until we stop using nuclear weapons. We are demonstrably a hostile species. So I think that is what's the real problem here. It's us. We're the problem.
Do you think, and then if so, what is the place for the government in their role in confirmation or disclosure? Do you think they have a role? Where can they benefit? Where can they be beneficial to humanity in the rollout of disclosure? Best case scenario, looking at them having some sort of benefit, because as it stands, most people look at them as essentially the suppressors of information. They just don't want to tell us because they don't want us to have the tech. They don't want us to be enlightened. But what is your idea on, where the government might be able to fit into disclosure that works for us?
Yeah, well, we have to take a look at, what government is and how it's structured. We have the three branches here in the United States: legislative, judicial, and executive. And I think there's lots of really good people in government who are doing their level best to get this information out, but are essentially powerless. I would love it if a sitting head of state, because this has never happened, the sitting head of state just came on TV and said, this is real. I've got firsthand knowledge. We know UFOs are real. Simple statement. That would be a step forward, because we're having senators and governors and representatives already do this. And I don't think they're the ones who are really behind the cover-up. I think what we're dealing with is kind of an alt government. We have a bunch of people who are in control who are not elected. I'm talking about the intelligence agencies, the three-letter agencies. We all know them: NSA, FBI, CIA, and so forth, and the highest levels of the military. People at the very highest levels of the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army are 100% in the know. It's the military-industrial complex. This is one of the reasons we can't get a hold of these UFO crash retrieval hardware.
Stop right there, Preston. We'll finish this part of the conversation on the other side of the break here as we get ready to go into our top of the hour break with Preston Dennett, author, researcher, all-around legend in this field, guys. Make sure you guys don't go anywhere. Get some questions ready for hour two. We'll see you in just a minute.
That move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, we are off camera for 5 minutes. Preston, see you in a minute. All right. All right, everyone, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, after hour number 2. Coming back with our guest, Preston Dennett, here back in the building with us. Guys, this is the hour for questions, so please make sure that you post those in all caps, and I will try my best to grab as many of those as I can. And yes, Healing Energies goes out to Science Bob. I know he was feeling under the weather the other day. I hope all is well. So shout out to Science Bob. Science Barbarino. As we get ready to come back here, we got about 10 seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, after hour number 2, back with the awesome, the legend, Preston Dennett. He's an author. He's a UFO researcher. We appreciate the data that he gives us as well, because it provides for free to the public, just like our archives. Those are absolutely free. YouTube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Make sure you jump in. You'll catch up on what you missed at the very least as we jump back into the conversation with Preston. I know you were the last question I have for you was like kind of how can we maybe potentially get to a disclosure point? Is the government necessary in that? If so, what role could they play in it? I know you're in the middle of talking about that, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so what I was getting to is the people who are truly the folks behind the cover-up are clearly the intelligence agencies in the highest levels of the military, and to some extent the military-industrial complex. So using Freedom of Information Acts to try to get a hold of the Roswell material, for example, is kind of a lost cause, because we can't use that method against private companies who apparently are the ones, Lockheed or what have you, who are holding this material. So we need to have a different approach. I think all the folks in government definitely have a role to play, and they do have the power to basically audit the intelligence agencies, follow the money, the budget. They have oversight over that. So that, I think, is a great tool, and that's something I think the folks within government should pursue, is truth and transparency within our intelligence agencies, and really work towards, the corruption that is inherent in the cover-up, because it is in effect a constitutional crisis. They're breaking the law. They're not allowed to. We all heard of the scandal in the Pentagon with the $1,000 hammers and a washer that causes $3,000. Clearly this money is being funneled somewhere else. So I think as citizens, our best tool is education and knowledge, and putting people in office who are honest and want to work hard to get to the truth. But government only has so much power. I think we need to really take a look at how we can get to these people who are behind the cover-up. It's very nefarious how they've structured themselves to become almost untouchable. Here's the way I look at it. Until and unless our intelligence agencies, the Pentagon and the NSA and all these, the head of defense, Bailey and Moultrie, till they're willing to admit to the truth of the Capitol flyover, the landing at Edwards Air Force Base that Gordon Cooper filmed, or not filmed, but developed the film. A UFO landed at Edwards Air Force Base. Very well authenticated. The alleged Eisenhower meeting in 1954, February. The reporting on that is excellent. Something happened. They have to admit to the truth of at least a dozen incidents before I think we should even listen to them. I don't see why we even need our government to say a word on this, because they've lied from day one. We don't need them to know the truth about this. If they're not willing to tell the truth, well, who needs you? That's why I think we are getting disclosure, so they can remain credible, relevant, control the narrative. They're not doing it voluntarily by any means. This is my opinion, my assessment. So they really need to step up their game and really start being a lot more truthful and transparent. And that's the only way we're going to get disclosure, is if the folks behind it stop choosing this pathway of secrecy. It's that simple. Do the right thing.
Yes, do the right thing. Preston, I'm with you on that. I've said that many times. Said this is a chance, it's still not too far gone for the government to be able to say, you know what, let's do what's right. Let's step in. Let's tell the people what's going on. Let's be transparent. Let's gain their trust back, because there has to be some sort of there has to be a relationship that takes place after all of this, after disclosure hits, after confirmation hits. So is it still the same relationship that the citizens currently have with the government, where it's like, you guys are authority and we're just at the wheels of whatever you guys want us to do? Or does that change? Like, you kind of covered a question that I had, which was essentially, has the government changed in their stance as far as, are they showing more of a will nowadays to release information or to even look like they want disclosure, versus how they've covered it up since Roswell? And it sounds to me like you're saying it's the same cover up. There's nothing that has changed there. Is that correct?
We are seeing steps forward. That's undeniable. There is actual movement for the first time in decades, but it's clearly very controlled. I mean, anyone can see that. I think, everyone's like, well, who's really running the country here? And there's all kinds of speculation and research into this, because we know it's not just the executive branch or the levels of government that are visible to us. But I've said this many times, the biggest force on this planet, the most powerful force, is we the people, all of us, coming together, banding, building up a coalition, if you will, getting a consensus of what we know to be true. I think if we can do that, just come together in a way that, we lay down our weapons and say enough is enough. Because, when an idea's time has come, nothing's going to stop it. Mm-hmm. And I think we're now at the point where we have enough people who've experienced this firsthand. We have an army of experiencers out there, an army of researchers, so much evidence that the cover-up is collapsing under the weight of its own lies. This is a crucial moment for humanity, in my mind, because we're at kind of a crossroads here. If folks behind the cover-up don't wake up and realize that they're on a pathway of no return, it's going to lead to a revolution. Countries don't last forever.
Yeah.
We're one of the longest lasting democratic republics in human history. And we're showing signs of breaking at the seams a little bit. Yeah. Revolutions happen all the time. And I think that is a definite possibility here. And this is the problem. It's ultimately greed and corruption that leads to the breakdown of society. So I don't know how this is going to roll out, Rob. I've always been an optimist, but being in this field has made me a little bit jaded.
Yeah.
Because, we're seeing them talk about UFOs, but it's like one step sideways and one step back and another diagonal, and then the conflicting statements. I mean, the whole drone situation is a great example. Could not get a straight answer on this from anybody. So what is going on here? It's ridiculous.
Oh man, and it's scary because revolution, and it's a word that you hate to use, but it's obvious that potentially it could come to that. And obviously governments don't want uprising of their own citizens, but it's like, what do you do when you're put in a position like this, back against the wall? You have people that are being abducted and taken all the time. They want answers. You have people that are seeing really weird things in the sky that kind of point to, we don't have control of our own skies. These people want answers. And it's like, it's that's kind of where it led me to a point to where, because I like to think about all sides of this. I have, some views, but I'm like, okay, let me look at this a different way. Okay, let me think of a different reason why the government is wanting to keep the secret, why they just, in the face of New Jersey drones there daily, just what would be another reason they wouldn't say anything? And then I thought about it. I'm like, okay, maybe, is it possible that they have at some point, that we as human beings in powers that be, have looked at these things as adversarial? Had there been any sort of conflict behind the scenes to where we may not be aware of it, but they're shooting on each other? And there's been accounts where that has actually happened. And the only reason why I was even looking at it that way is because it's, usually when there's a UFO sighting, there's always some sort of fighter jet scrambled to that location, almost all the time. And that's usually done when we have adversaries infiltrating our airspace. The same sort of response happens. And so I'm like, okay, wow, that, there are a lot of things that we do in a way that our military treats these things as if it's adversarial. And then I went a step further and I said, okay, then, because I was trying to figure out why they would try to classify the knowledge of extraterrestrials being here, just that knowledge. Like, you think it should be something they should be able to just say, like, because skies aren't classified. But then potentially, if they're looking at these things in an adversarial fashion, then maybe that's the part of it that allows it to be classified, into why they won't tell us. And at the end of the day, will they come out and say, hey, look, we've been protecting you guys this entire time. We actually had conflict this time, and we are aware that they have been abducting people, and we've been attempting to stop that. So the actions that you've been seeing when you see jets on the spot of UFO sightings, we're attempting to dissuade those UFOs from staying in the area and affecting the citizens on the ground. And when I thought about that, I'm like, man, it could make a lot of sense. That could be an angle that we're actually looking at, and would make sense on why a government wouldn't necessarily want to tell the people, because one, it would be considered some sort of threat from outside. And then two, it would also show that the governments actually don't have control of this interaction. So not saying that is what's going on, but I like to sit back and think about what's most logical, what's plausible. And there are a lot of elements about what we're looking at that kind of fit into, maybe the governments consider them adversaries on some sort of level. I don't know. What do you think about that? Have you even thought about that?
Oh, certainly. And I think it's very important to consider all possibilities of what's going on here. I don't think that's what's going on, not for 1 second. I think our governments know full well that what the ET agenda is, and certainly researchers know. I think a very careful look at the onboard experience shows exactly why they're here. It is really a goal of, honestly, healing, teaching, guiding, warning, informing people. This is very clearly demonstrated by an objective study of onboard experiences. What I think we're seeing with like the drone situation is more of a precursor to a possible false flag. I think our governments want us to fear the ETs and have worked very, very hard to promote that narrative. You'll see this in the media coverage of this subject, which is often very fear-based. I think that there are a number of researchers out there who are government stooges. You have some of them denouncing the subject, others saying, evil aliens coming here to take over. And I think of course, we all know about my labs, which are very horrific events being perpetrated on innocent citizens, often contactees who are genuinely having experiences, then become victimized by government agents using psychotronics, hypnosis, drugs, every tool in their toolbox to make them think ETs are evil when they're not. The evidence does not show this. I think our government is terrified of the ETs, not because they're here to take over. The ET threat is to them, to their power structure, to their lies, to their control over humanity. This is exactly what I think is going on. They're planning on doing a false flag operation, annihilating huge segments of the population, and blaming it on ETs. Don't believe it for a second. That is not why ETs are here. I don't know any researcher, except maybe one or two, who thinks ETs are here to take over. It's ridiculous. They've been around for millennia, since recorded history. We know this. So I think that's the situation. Yes, there's an ET threat. The ET threat is to the power elite, period. To their greed, to their money, to their corruption, to their narrative, to their control of humanity, to their dumbing down and the enslavement of humanity. You can tell I'm very passionate about this.
Yeah.
Because, man, oh man, I'm not standing for it. It's like that movie Network. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. This is what we all need to do. Just stand up and say enough is enough. Because, I've seen polls on Facebook groups like, do you think ETs are evil and here to take over? 80% said no. Most contactees, I know there's a lot of fear and confusion surrounding the subject. I know some people have negative encounters. It can be a very scary experience for people. But I have to tell you, having interviewed so many people, when someone is taken on board and physically examined, that's the most difficult thing. People are going to straight panic sometimes, often. And I've documented over 300 healing cases, and I can double that at this point. It's very, very clear that healing is a major part of the ET, why people are being taken on board. This is demonstrably true. Almost every major researcher, and I'll even include David Jacobs, who's not so hot on the ETs, he's got many cases of this. And they'll take you down to the engine room. They'll show you how the craft works, up to the helm, the control room, put you in the pilot seat, let you fly the craft. They'll show you the Earth, a field of stars. If you look at the sequence of events, when people get communication from the ETs, it's not, oh, we're going to hurt you. They're like, you are destroying your planet. What are you doing? Why are you polluting your atmosphere? Stop chopping down the forests. The message is very clear. Stop using nuclear weapons. You're on the pathway towards self-destruction. I mean, it could not be clearer. So no, I don't think that our government for 1 second believes ETs are here to hurt humanity. I think they know that a lot more than even most researchers. I think they've got the full deck there. They know everything that's going on, and they're fighting tooth and nail to still keep it covered up.
Do you think they are in communication with each other, governments and extraterrestrials? Some people say that.
Only very early on. I think like the Eisenhower meeting in 1954, yeah, there was communication there. I think ET reached out to a number of world leaders. We've got good evidence of this. There are quite a few very high-level prominent politicians who have come forward saying they've had encounters. I don't think that's a coincidence. They have contacted people from every level of society. But I think, no, there has never been any deal made, in exchanging technology for allowing abductions. Won't even use that word, because it's offensive to contactees. I don't think the reporting on that is at all compelling or persuasive. I think it's disinformation and very clever. And I traced its root down to some, a guy who I don't think is a legit UFO researcher. He's the one who started that rumor. He recently passed away. I don't want to name him because, if you do your research, don't believe me. Look for yourself. ETs, not in a million years would they hand over technology to a corrupt government who is committing genocide and funding wars. We sell weapons to both sides. The major governments are in cahoots. They're absolutely cooperating with each other. They are not in communication with ETs at this point. Contactees are. If you want to know the truth about what's going on, go to them. Don't go to the governments. They've lied from day one, Rob. We cannot believe them. This is so easily proven. They have never told the truth, ever.
Because I'm just trying to reconcile the whole idea, because, obviously some people say in that initial conversation, there were some agreements made or some guidelines that were talked about. But the thing I was trying to figure out is then, okay, if there was knowledge, if the government had knowledge of the extraterrestrial agenda, then how would they call, I don't know, what do you call abductions? Whatever you call abductions.
Onboard encounters. That's what I'll call them.
Onboard encounters. So when they're having these onboard, so why would those still be able to take place? Like, didn't they make some sort of agreement, or at least lay the guidelines out to the government in the beginning? So why would they still be doing that? And then why also, going back to the cases that could be considered extraterrestrial attempts at extraterrestrial contact, why would those cases still happen if it would seem that they have recognized that governments are the leaders, and then they would overstep them in order to make direct contact with citizens? Like, what is the game plan for the extraterrestrials then? I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, well, I think you hit the nail right on the head there. I think they did go to governments. I suspect, and I've been told this from some contactees like Dolly Safran, that the Eisenhower meeting wasn't unique. This happened in other countries. And it was an attempt on the ET's part to communicate that using nuclear weapons was a pathway towards self-destruction, and that we should disclose. And we did not, our governments, I should say, did not cooperate. They don't want to do that. And this is what I think encouraged the ETs, because you can see the timeline of this very clearly. Onboard experiences really ramped up in the late 1950s, early 1960s, 70s, 80s, and so forth. And this was because our own governments refused to be truthful and transparent. They refused to stop using nuclear weapons. Their interests were not in humanity's great interests, our best interests. They wanted money, control, power. ETs wanted humanity to evolve spiritually. So they started pulling people on board in very large numbers. J. Allen Hynek is quoted as saying 1 in 40 people have had an onboard experience. The Roper poll found 1 in 50. So this is something that's happening to millions of people. This has been a worldwide campaign to uplift humanity, to uphold their genetics, to educate them that UFOs are real, ETs are here, we are them, they are us, we share a common heritage, and that we are on a pathway towards self-destruction, and to wake us up psychically and spiritually and morally and ethically. If you take a look, if you study the average contactee, you will see that they are environmentalists, they're doctors, they're nurses, they're inventors, they're artists, they're musicians, they are human rights activists, they are people who are working so hard for the betterment of humanity. These are the people who are being contacted. That speaks volumes. People are being brought on board and warned over and over again that we're on the wrong pathway. People who are contactees are almost without exception profoundly psychic. This is part of the ET agenda. They're waking us up to our own abilities of telepathy and clairvoyance and astral projection and healing and mediumship. Just imagine what our society would be like if everyone had intuition, could know when someone's lying, could speak telepathically. Corruption and greed would end overnight. This is what they're trying to do. This is why people are being taken on board. And it happened coinciding exactly with the atomic age, coinciding exactly when we reached the point of almost no return, when we started absolutely using nuclear weapons in a way that could destroy all life on this planet. The correlation there has almost been undeniable. This
all right,
is
hold it right there. Hold it right there. We got Preston Dennett being awesome as usual, guys. So we get ready to step into the last final break of the night with our guest. That means we only have about 20 plus minutes with Preston Dennett. Get your questions together. Get them ready. We will be right back on the After Hours Radio Show right here on Space Out Radio with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. See you guys back here in just a minute. All right, we are clear, crystal clear. And let's see here. All right, I got one question there tagged. So, guys, make sure you guys put these questions together here. Seymour Glass. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you showing up here. Let's see, High Noon as well. Appreciate you coming on in. Zerper77. Thanks for showing up here as well. The Ellis. Thank you for coming on in. Let's see who else. New name, Vincent Moeller. Thank you for showing on up here tonight. Let's see. Candy Wolf. Appreciate you for coming on in. And let me see. We're jumping back here in the chat some. Also want to thank the super chats that have come through here tonight. We had Richard Minnick. We had Bob Thorson. Says Preston's got more UFO intel than the Pentagon. And he didn't even need a black budget to get it. There you go. There you go.
Thanks, Bob.
The Ellis, good show. Keep it up. Wake the people up. Yes, that's what we do. Conversations that move the needle right here on the After Hours Radio Show. And I might as well take a moment to kind of let you guys know how it happens on this channel. If you're coming here for the first time, you happen to come in on a night where we do the After Hours Radio Show. You'll catch this show Saturdays and Sundays from 8 p.m. Pacific until 11 p.m. Pacific. Then you have Dave Scott running the Woo Train Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Pacific until midnight. Also, we have Element 115 with Lee and Tim James, and that show runs Fridays at 8 p.m. Pacific until 9 p.m. So, point means that 7 days a week, you come right here to Spaced Out Radio and find something going on. So, we would appreciate if you consider hitting that subscribe button, also the notification bell to let you know next time we go live, because it's all the time. And we have a vast archive of shows here that you can go back and watch. Years and years and years of shows right here on Space Out Radio, YouTube at Space Out Radio. So definitely come and check us out. We would appreciate it, as well as Preston Dennett here. And what is your channel, Preston? Is The Light Gate?
That's right. The Light Gate, UPRN Radio, each Monday evening from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern.
Make sure you guys go over there and check out Preston. Always a great time, him and Dolly and whatever guests they end up having as well. Always a great conversation and good content. And we'll be covering some of those things here tonight, along with your questions. So make sure you get those typed up, and I will ask them as they come. We are on a clock, so we may not be able to fit everyone's questions in. I'll just give you a heads up on that. Doesn't mean I don't like you. It doesn't mean I didn't like your question. It just means we ran out of time, and unfortunately, we wanted to get the most pertinent questions over to Preston here, the ones that have most to do with the conversation tonight. So we appreciate your understanding on all that as we get ready to get back into the show in about a minute here, minute and a half. JSCO77, appreciate you coming on in. Who else did I miss? Who else snuck through here? Let's see. Who else snuck through? JSCO77. Alexandri Lesperance. And I got this question. This will be asked to Preston later on in the show. Let's see. And this, who was that cop that saw the egg-shaped craft in the desert? I think it happened in the 80s. That was in the 60s, and I think they were talking about Lonnie Zamora. That was a Lonnie Zamora case, which, again, was kind of hard because on my top 5 list, I didn't really look at that as maybe a moment where they were trying to make contact, because they really were by themselves out in the desert. Didn't seem like they were trying to interact with a bunch of people. But when you look at the cases that Preston mentioned earlier and that I talked about as well, those are like blatant in your face, like, hi, we're here. Acknowledge us, please. And that's kind of the scenarios that I'm in. And just the fact that there's been so many of them, and most of the population has looked at those sightings and kind of just let them go as nothing big. I'm like, dude, do you really understand what the impact of that? If you look at it for what it likely could have been, that could have been a moment where they're trying to get your attention, and then what do you do with it? You kind of move on to the next story, or say, oh, I don't really believe what happened there. And I see us throwing away like viable data every day, and it kind of makes me sad on the inside. So we got about 10 seconds left when we come back from break here. Let's see, 5 seconds without any issues, fingers crossed. Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We are on the back half of the second hour. This is the time that you ask questions right here on the After Hours radio show. Make sure you put them in caps. We'll get them over to our guest here tonight, the awesome Preston Dennett, as well as if you missed any of this conversation tonight, make sure you know 100% free all the time our archives right here, youtube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. Jumping back into the conversation here. Preston, I wanted to focus on one thing before we grab some of these questions here. You had recently a video that you had done, and or a series of videos, and I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wow, you know what? That's actually pretty profound. And I don't know if you even looked at it like this, but you did a series called UFOs in Your Hometown, right? And I feel like that personalizes the UFO encounter and experience. It kind of brings it home for a lot of people, because a lot of people who have not ever had sightings look around and they see a sighting that happened across the country or in another state, in a different part of the world, but it's never one that happened right in their backyard. And I think when people get to see those examples of things that happen in familiar territory, that it kind of brings it home for them that, wow, these things are real. And I think, I don't know if you realize how much of a service that plays into, getting people inside of the loop. I don't know if you realize the impact that had, but I wanted to bring that up and have you kind of speak to that. What kind of brought you to doing that series, and let's go from there.
Yeah, that came about because I kept getting requests for people to like, well, check out where I live. Have any encounters happened here? And finally, I had enough requests. So I'm like, well, maybe I should, do an episode on this. And I did it a bit as a lark, but absolutely seriously, because I thought, this could be a really good idea, a very effective way to let people know just how common UFO encounters are. Because there is a misconception. Many people have asked me, well, why does this only happen in the United States? Which is, nothing could be further from the truth. We know it's worldwide. And so I put out this challenge and I got a huge response. And I've got a list now that's approaching 1,000 locations. I've covered maybe just over 100 or so. I've done 10 episodes on this. And it's been amazing because I always learn something. And sometimes it's very challenging because people have given me a town with 200 people in it. I'm like, I'm not going to find something here. But I did. I absolutely did. I'm batting 100% with this. And it's so interesting to me because it proves like 3 main things. One, UFOs are much more common than people realize. Ubiquitous is the best word to put it. Second, there isn't a place on this planet they haven't visited. The implications of that are truly profound, which means third, that they are putting on a publicity campaign. There has to be a reason every single town has been visited, every location on this planet. And yeah, I challenge you, give me a location. Easiest if you can contact me through Facebook or email or through my channel. And I will definitely put it on my list because this is so amazing to me. And what's really interesting is I'm finding not only sightings, but landings. face-to-face encounters with humanoids, of course, onboard encounters, and in a couple of cases, apparent UFO crash retrievals. So this, I think, is really good. What would I say? Good. I'm looking for a word. Good material, I guess, to fight skeptics with. Good ammunition. That's the word I'm looking for. This is great ammunition to arm yourself against skeptics, because you can name any single place on this planet and come up with an encounter. That's huge.
That is huge. That is huge. And I wish, I don't know why, in the community, it seems like your data is well received and respected. And a lot of people go to it. You get a lot of views on these videos, and it just, I would wonder when they would see the value of data like that on a larger level. I think we briefly talked about this last time we talked, but recently, since the last time we've talked, they had the Skywatcher team come out, and I kind of, I was watching how they go about processing their data. I was sort of impressed with it, with the vetting process that they go through, where it has to go through all these different levels of scrutiny before they allow it to come out as something anomalous. And then not only will it get the label of being anomalous, but it fits into a certain class of objects. And I think that once the data there is compiled and there's enough there, it's going to be a pretty cool thing to look at, to realize, okay, there are 15 distinctly different things that we're seeing. And, here are cases where these are definitely considered anomalous, and there's just no other way to look at these. Would you ever consider going in with a team like that? Like if a team like that wanted you to partner up and, kind of dig into some of your data? Because I think that's where your data would also come into play and be helpful for someone like them, where they've put these categories and classes together, and now they can take that framework and then look at what you have compiled as far as data. And I think those two things have to happen at some point. Have you considered doing that? Have you been contacted by anyone, or would you be open to doing that if they were looking for someone?
Well, I'd certainly have a lot of questions before I would, sign my name off on something like that, because I think there are a lot of bad actors in this field, and I'm very wary of people who are involved in the intelligence sector. I know there are good whistleblowers out there who are trying to get the truth out, but I think some are being censored. Some, I think, are on the wrong team, and I think it's very difficult to classify these things by shape. I think that's probably a dead end, or species, because essentially we're all the ETs share a common heritage. We try to divide ourselves here on Earth as different races, which is not true. We're different ancestries. That's all. We're one race. I think that's what we're looking at with the ETs as well. They're not that different from us. I'm open, truthful, and transparent with all my research. Ask me, I share it. I have no paywall on my YouTube channel. My books are very reasonably priced. I am trying so hard to just get this information out. I would love to, if all UFO researchers could come together and have a consensus, just a simple bottom line of what we know to be true, and work from there. But I'm wary of organizations that pick and choose, cherry pick and chew fit, and saying this is not allowed. Because, for example, Congress has yet to talk about people who are having direct contact. They have not brought one single experiencer in to testify. So why not? That's the cutting edge. This is where we get the most knowledge. So I don't know. I'm a little bit of two minds about it. I think it's an important step forward. And I applaud anybody who enters this field and does, their due diligence and tries to get the truth out. But we have to remember the cover-up is still in place. There still are bad actors out there. We have to be very careful who we trust. Because I've said it, I don't know, 5 times on this show. our governments have lied and are still lying. Don't trust them.
Wow. You know, there was I was speaking to guy Justin Bush last week, and he was talking about, you know, an experience that he mentioned where there were some potential government entities that came and spoke to him after a particular event. And, you know, I was talking to him. I said, okay, those guys could be looked at as like the Men in Black. And we were just trying to see, because the questions they were asking were more like probing questions about the encounter and what happened during the encounter, like specific details that they wanted to know or corroborate. Which, when I heard that, I'm like, okay, is it that we have these Men in Black entities go around and they are fielding information versus or validating information or theories or thoughts that they might have, and that's a reason why they don't want to include experiencers into the national data set or in front of everyone, because you'll find out that they are actually going around to each one of these individuals and asking them questions as if they don't know the full details of what these experiences entail. Have you looked at Men in Black in that way, or do you even believe Men in Black is a thing, and what are your thoughts on why the Men in Black do what they do?
Yeah, well, I think there's some confusion and conflation going on here, because people talk about some Men in Black as being sort of on the ET side, not human, sort of, odd looking Men in Black limousines showing up that disappear. And I've never got that kind of Men in Black case, except for maybe one. It was a guy who was clearly being MILAB'd. He was involved in the military, and they literally hypnotized him and gave him drugs and experimented on him with mind control. So I am a little skeptical of the whole, ET Men in Black narrative. But in terms of government agents or people who show up wearing dark suits and sunglasses and basically take people's photographs and evidence and threaten them, 100% that goes on. I know several contactees who are being very closely surveilled, or who have had their photographs stolen, or their hypnosis tapes, or their contact notes, or are being followed. I've seen it happen. I was with Dolly Safran when this happened. We were at a UFO conference and we got followed. Hands down, no doubt, because we took 5-10 turns, parked in the driveway at a little Airbnb, and they came and blocked the darn driveway. Wow. It was so in your face and so obviously, trying to be threatening. So yeah, there are these folks, and people have been accosted by them. They won't identify themselves. I know of a number of cases where this has happened to even children, but people who've taken UFO photographs. And yeah, these are what I would call the Men in Black, very much like the movie Men in Black, which is clearly fictionalized, but had some really interesting elements of truth to it.
Definitely. And let me hop into some of these questions real quick. We had our first one come through here, which is Tim D's. Thanks for the super chat. Do you see connection between birds, trees, clouds, earth, ground, air, and water, as in the sea being deep, reptilians, energy grids, and power ley lines?
Wow, that's a lot to unpack there, Timmy. It's an interesting question. I mean, I think all things are connected. I can't say I'm really an expert on energy grids or power and ley lines. There does seem to be a perhaps loose connection to some of these sacred sites like Stonehenge and alleged ley lines or this sort of thing, and UFO activity. But that's a very open-ended question that's sort of hard to really draw any solid conclusions on. But I do feel there's very deep connections between a lot of these things that we have yet to understand.
All right. And next question came from JSCO77. Thanks for the super chat. Preston, do you have any new beneficial info on the topic that you have not shared anywhere that you would share with us tonight?
Well, I'm usually share everything I got right off the bat. I will say I'm working on a very, very exciting book, the sequel to Symmetry, A True UFO Adventure, about Dolly Safran. And I'm transcribing the interviews right now where she has shared amazing information that she got directly from the ETs about other dimensions and the definition of that, and some of the science and spirituality and definitions of psychic things and this sort of thing. Direct knowledge from the ETs that, I'm not sure I really have the time to share here tonight. Dolly would be a much more lucid speaker on that. So you might consider, bringing her on, because we would love to give a sort of preview of what we're putting out in that book. But they took her into the fifth dimension and showed her some really incredible stuff about that really is not under gravity is not what people think it is. There can be a much larger planet that has a lesser gravity, because gravity is largely electrical in nature and is due to multiple factors, not just the mass of a planet, but its distance to its sun and a number of other things going on here. Gravity is not understood, not publicly at least. Our governments might know. That, I think, is kind of bombshell information that really needs to get out there.
Yeah, let's set that up. Dolly, I know you're watching out there. I'll reach out. Let's set the date up and do exactly what Preston just said here. I think that would be awesome. Next question up was Zerper77 is asking, why is it that some Christians think that extraterrestrials are demonic and of Satan?
Yeah, it's probably the fourth most popular explanation to account for this. And this is a religious school of thought based on faith, not so much, I think, on actual objective evidence. I might get some pushback on this, because I know there are religious people out there, and I absolutely respect a person's choice to be religious. But I have done the research on this. I have firsthand researched demonic hauntings. Demons are real, no doubt about it. They manifest in a very set pattern that almost always begins with knockings on the wall, cold spots in the house, doors opening and closing, usually victimizes one most vulnerable member of a family, perhaps, or a group. And it goes up to infestation and oppression and ultimately possession. The onboard experience is wholly different. It's a completely different set of events. A very careful look at both these subjects shows that they are completely separate. Now, there's a school of thought that anything paranormal, whether it's a ghost of your Aunt Martha or a Bigfoot or anything, is satanic. It's the devil. So I think what we need to do is step back a little bit and not rely on old writings that are perhaps antiquated and outdated, and do your firsthand research. Most contactees that I've interviewed, some were very religious, had a really difficult time with it, and ended up moving more towards spirituality. So I think it can be quite restrictive in your thinking, but it definitely has its wonderful uses in terms of being kind and giving, and allowing love and truth to guide your actions. I think done that way, religion is beneficial. But no, I don't think for 1 second it's demonic. And boy, have I studied it. No, the evidence does not support that.
All right. Well, we got Paramarvelous saying, speaking of locations, any idea what's going on down in Antarctica? We hear anything from ancient craft to active extraterrestrial colony. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked, because I did a deep dive into Antarctica about 2-3 months ago and collected all the evidence I could. And I didn't find anything credible pointing towards ET bases or hollow earths or anything like that. What I did find was really shocking, though. We do have bases down there in terms of human bases, and they have experienced some really remarkable, absolutely well authenticated UFO events that have been almost completely covered up. Chile has a base down there, Argentina, United States, England. Antarctica is a very interesting place because it's illegal to own property there. No one is allowed to establish a permanent base there. There was a treaty signed in, I think, 1957, thereabouts. But these cases, these UFO events that have occurred there are off the charts, amazing. Photographic evidence, evidence with magnetometers, radiation readings. They have absolute 100% proof, witnessed by hundreds of people, these craft coming down and putting on, again, a sort of display. I outlined about 20 incidents or so. I did a video on my YouTube channel. You can check that out. It was amazing. Couldn't find any evidence of buried cities or anything like that. There's definitely stuff down there that I think we don't know about, because the Earth has flipped over in history and the poles change. So there are lots of secrets, I think, still waiting to be discovered. But some UFO incidents down there are amazing. Yeah,
there's definitely some questions that need to be answered, like structures that are 100, 200 feet below water. Like, how did that happen? How did they get there? So there's definitely a lot of questions there, as we have Alexandria Lesperance saying, is there a public database or repository for all UFO, UAP, NHI incidents all around the world since the beginning of time? Research many books and websites. I'll be glad to say Preston's YouTube would be a great place for historical data. But did you have another place to guide them?
Oh, Alexandria. I wish someone would do that, because we now have the ability, I think, with computers and to collate a lot of information. No, there is not one that I'm aware of. I think there are some attempts going on right now to do that sort of thing. It's a beast of a job. It would be almost impossible to do because there's so many cases. I
think it wouldn't be probably one place. It'd probably be multiple places. Like I say, I check out Preston's site, his website and YouTube page. Also, go look at New Fork and MUFON and the data they've captured. That's the beautiful thing about our community, is we have different individuals who specialize in curating particular data. So you take actually all of their assets and you put them together, and then you have that place that you're looking for.
Michael Schratt, I know, is working on a database.
Exactly.
I think, what's the guy, the disclosure guy, Stephen Bassett, is collecting all kinds of articles. There are a number of really excellent database sites. I know Stephen Greer has made his website public of a bunch of, everyone's doing their part. But if we could get one database, that would be so awesome. This is why we need the funding that the black budget has. Because if we had that money, we could employ 10,000 people and get it done.
So don't even get me started on that, man. I'm doing a show about that. It would take less than, I'm not even gonna go there. I'll do that, save that for another show. But we have one more here we can squeeze in. We got about 1 minute left with you. Timmy D's is saying, thank you both so much. To clarify, I'm curious as to your view on all or most phenomena being from one source, like jinn, transmedium, intermediaries.
No, I don't prescribe to that theory. I think we're dealing with many different things here. I think the vast majority of what we would call UFOs are exactly what they appear to be: extraterrestrial craft piloted by biological beings like us from other planets, who may have properties that we would consider to be interdimensional, but really aren't. I mean, we ourselves are interdimensional. They just have a very advanced knowledge and use of what seems like magic to us, paranormal or interdimensional. I think that there are a lot of things going on here, though, because there are like little people in all cultures throughout history that are what probably better termed cryptoterrestrials, not ETs. And these are still going on.
And we'll have to stop it right there. Cliffhanger, so we can get Preston back here. Preston, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Pleasure as always. You have a great rest of your night, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Rob. Pleasure.
All right.
Conversations that move.
Preston
the
Dennett, guys. Make sure you don't go anywhere. We're going to have an
Listening
awesome
to
hour
After
3
Hours
coming up soon
with
here,
Mr.
right
Rob
after the
G
break.
On the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, welcome back, Spaced Out Radio. After hour number 3, want to thank our guest tonight, Preston Dennett, for being so awesome, coming in and doing what he does so spectacularly. Is that even a word? Spectacularly. As we go ahead and get ready to come back with from radio here in just a moment. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, after hour number 3. Fantastic show so far. We had Preston Dennett joining us hours 1 and 2. If you missed any of that awesome conversation, make sure you jump in the archive, which once again are absolutely free, 100% free. YouTube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. The options are endless there. As we get ready to jump right on in, back into the show and get into some Steve Stockton Tales Untold Missing Person Mysteries, as we go ahead and jump it off like that.
Welcome to Tales Untold and Missing Persons Mysteries on Spaced Out Radio's After Hours. My name is Steve Stockton, and I'm here to take you on a journey of mysteries, legends, and true stories. Come, join me on this strange adventure of Tales Untold and Missing Person Mysteries. A skinwalker encounter. I just recently found you on YouTube and have been binging on your content. I thought I would share my story with you. First thing you need to understand about me is how I was raised. I was raised in the upper Midwest, but by people from the deepest parts of Appalachia. I was also raised in close contact with 2 separate native tribes and in a religious household. I grew up knowing demons existed. I grew up knowing witchcraft existed. I grew up knowing all the folklore of the tribes in the hills was true, but it was always something that affected other people in distant lands or even distant eras. Most of my encounters with anything paranormal or out of the ordinary have been completely benign encounters that I've half convinced myself weren't really real. Like my first encounter with one of the fae folk in the form of a winged fairy flying by my head. I can almost believe it was just some fall leaves in the wind and I didn't really see it. Or my conversations with 2 loved ones who had passed were just a dream of me longing to talk to them. Nothing that I couldn't dismiss, nothing that scared me, until 5 years ago. I was working a second shift factory job in the dead of winter. This particular night, a horrible snowstorm was blowing through, and I had to drive 25 miles on very rural roads to get home from work. The going was slow. The snowplows and salt trucks decided to quit early and hadn't gotten to my route at all. I was playing the wonderful game of, am I on the road or not? As I barely rolled down the road in my vehicle, I kept watch for vehicles in the ditch, high drifts that may cause problems, and the like. I saw very little traffic and nothing of wildlife. Approximately 5 miles from home, I saw a person in the road. I took my foot off the gas to slow even more because touching the brakes was not an option on these roads. I scanned the ditches quickly to look for a vehicle that had gone off the road as I neared this figure ahead of me. Didn't see a vehicle. Now, I could see the person continuing to walk in front of my vehicle to the other side of the road. When they neared the ditch, they stuck their arms in front of them as if they fell forward. As the outstretched arms touched the ground, the person began to transform into a white and gray wolf. It was huge, and I could clearly see the transformation taking place. For the briefest of moments, the figure had the front end of a wolf and the back end of a human. It then went over the shoulder, down into the ditch, and I could no longer see it. I wanted to punch the gas, but I knew I would end up wrecking. I slowly increased my speed to continue home. It took me 20 minutes to make the last 5 miles. The roads were that bad. I felt that there was no way I could outrun it in my vehicle, and if I tried, I would be at a standstill in the ditch. And I knew I needed to make it home because I knew it was following me. Not only did I feel watched or stalked, I felt hunted. I prayed and cried all the way. When I got home, I ran straight into my cousin's house next door to mine, shut the door and locked it, and leaned against it crying. He came running to see what was wrong. Because he grew up the same way I did, I didn't have to explain much beyond the words, I just saw a skinwalker, and it's followed me home. After some quickly spoken expletives, he asked me what it was. I told him a wolf. He sat up with me for the rest of the night. I was too terrified to go to sleep. It's been 5 years and it still scares me. Though I now live in a different house, I'm still in the same area and I'm terrified of seeing it again. I'm not on drugs. I do drink, but not when I'm driving. My mental health is sound. And I'm not a young kid with a wild imagination. I'm a pretty solid woman in my 50s. Yes, demons are real, but angels are too. And I know it's not a faraway time or place anymore. It's here and now. Stay safe, everyone. Thanks for listening, and thank you for your content. Signed, Anonymous. A loud encounter. My ex-husband and I were arguing furiously one night in the early 2000s. Thankfully, our daughter was spending the night with her grandparents and was not a witness. We were both very intoxicated, and I'm certain this added fuel to the fire of our fight. This awful argument was unlike us both. We weren't normally prone to such heated, disgusting vitriol, but here we were, screaming until our throats were sore. I left the living room and ran into our bedroom and slammed the door shut. I sat on the bed and flipped on the television to drown out my thoughts. Moments later, I heard a horrible, loud noise coming from the living room. It sounded as if our large-screen TV had been slammed to the hardwood floor. I was absolutely furious. I was sure, in a rage, my ex had pulled the television off the wall, thrown it to the floor, and shattered it just to spite me. I charged out of the room and screamed, "Stop tearing up my house!" He looked at me blankly and said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." I yelled again, saying, "I heard that loud noise. What in the hell are you destroying in here?" He retorted with, "Look, I have no clue what you're talking about, but I've just been sitting here. I've done nothing." Not seeing any damage, I just walked back in the bedroom and shut the door. Moments later, he comes barging in the room with, "What are you breaking? What was that loud noise?" I, confused, said, "I didn't hear a thing. I didn't do anything. I don't know what you're talking about." We both sat on the bed, dumbfounded, relaying our non-shared experience of loud, unmistakable, booming, crashing sounds. We walked into the living room to continue our quandary and then simultaneously heard a sharp rapping come from the floor below our feet. It was as if someone had taken a broom handle to the ceiling to alert noisy neighbors. However, this was not a shared tenant's ceiling. We lived in a single-story home. The noise was emanating from our basement. We both got very quiet, now frightened that someone was in our home. I followed my ex into the kitchen, where we again heard another succession of raps under our feet. Together, we descended the stairs to the basement to gingerly look around for the culprit. After searching every nook, we decided this too must be a paranormal happening, above and beyond the crashing sounds we heard separately. It is my personal belief that our loved ones who had passed before us to the great beyond were trying to break up our awful fight. Whomever was responsible certainly shut us up, and with confusion and fright, we aligned ourselves on the same team. We immediately stopped fighting, and I said to my ex, "They don't want us arguing. We need to work this out." I've had additional otherworldly happenings, but this one sticks with me, reminding me that love should rule your head, not selfish anger. Keep up the excellent work. Thank you for all that you do. Signed, Leslie in Ohio. Shadow Person Encounter. Hi, Steve. I've been listening to you for a couple of months, and I just followed you on Facebook. I only have one story of what I think was a paranormal experience. I was 7 years old. I went to bed one night, and my parents were downstairs. It was just the three of us in the house. My bedroom door was open, and I was facing the doorway. I had to have the hall light on to sleep. I had a hard time sleeping as a kid, and I know I was nowhere near drifting off when this happened. I tossed and turned, and one of the times I turned back over to face the doorway. On the illuminated but blank hallway wall, I saw something. I began to faintly see the shadow outline on the wall that was growing slightly darker and larger and bouncing a bit, as if it were walking up the stairs that were just around the corner from my bedroom door. I heard nothing, but assumed it must be my dad. But I clearly heard my parents talking and watching TV downstairs. The shadow was clearly outlined. It was like a silhouette of a man who appeared to be wearing a long coat, hat, and carrying a briefcase. There appeared to be a cigarette or a cigar sticking out of his mouth in the shadow. The shadow remained completely still, but I distinctly remember watching the faintest shadow of smoke curl and twist upwards from what he was smoking. I think that part freaked me out more than anything. I was in disbelief and squeezed my eyes shut and hid my little head under the blanket. When I opened them, it was gone. I don't remember if I told my parents that night or the next morning, but nothing ever came of it. I just know I wasn't asleep. Signed, Anonymous.
All right, that is Steve Stockton, Tales Untold, Missing Person Mysteries. Once again, we appreciate Steve Stockton being a part of the After Hours radio show right here on Spaced Out Radio. We still have things to get into here tonight, like, I don't know, maybe the After Hours wrap up with your guy, Drew Banky.
You're an irredeemable monster!
Come here, I'm gonna eat you! Get in my belly!
Get him in the north! He doesn't have north! Go it! That man's got north!
All right. The After Hours wrap up with none other than the man right next to me here, Drew Banky. Drew Ski, how you been?
Been doing great, brother. Just busy and yeah, locking down a deal. We're gonna be moving, so it's lots going on, man. Had some people over and had did some ceremonies today, and just been busy ever since about 6 o'clock this morning, man.
We'll have to get some details about that, Drew Banky. We'll have to get some details. We had the great Preston Dennett, researcher extraordinaire, someone who you would hope that his focus on this community and in trying to curate and get answers, you hope that it's reflected upon a lot of the newcomers into the field. And that's what we talk about, old guard, new guard sort of situation. Just a great dude, though, vast amount of knowledge. I know you respect him. You spoke to him before. How'd you feel about the show tonight and what he had to say?
Great. I mean, it's always he's always dropping facts. I think I was watching the chat too while it was and the response from there. It's always interesting to see that when Preston's talking, and someone said that he's like a UFO encyclopedia, like a living UFO encyclopedia. So it's funny.
It's true.
So yeah, it's he's a great guy. Tons of knowledge. Him and Dolly are some really genuine people, and his takes on things, connecting it back to spirituality and energy and all that. Obviously I'm all about that. So I couldn't be more on board with Preston and what he's doing. And support him and Dolly.
Yeah, and Dolly, we'll have her on the next show here. I know last time I had Preston on, we had Preston and Dolly. So we'll get Dolly back on the next show, and it'll be awesome. It'll be, focused on what Preston was talking about there, because I think that would be, a good conversation to have as well. And so why not? We're going to do it. And encyclopedia, going back to that, I mean, that's definitely, I know when I came into the field and I began doing research and diving in, because I went all the way back. I went back as far as I could in the subject, and then kind of just, it was almost like binge watching your favorite Netflix show, right? So everybody else is in season 8, where so many things have happened, character growths have happened, people have come and gone and left the scene, and you're way back here on season 2, like, oh my God, did you know that XYZ happened? Did you know the Roswell was a thing? Did you know and then you kind of graduate, and as you take that journey to get up to speed and come up to speed to season 8 with everyone else, you've seen all these different documentaries, and you can't help but know that Preston Dennett is in every single one, if not every other one, along with Richard Dolan and Nick Pope, and there were a handful of individuals who you would find essentially in every documentary. But when you look back, hindsight now, you look back, you're like, okay, those are the right people to have in the documentaries, because those are also the individuals that have this entire time curated data and have this huge, vast, either just physical database like Preston has, or just a wealth of knowledge like Dolan would have. And you kind of see why they were, the go-tos for a lot of documentaries.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, it's they're respected because they do the work, and they like you said before, they bring forth receipts. Like Preston always has receipts for anything he talks about. He doesn't talk off the cuff about anything. And that's one of the things I respect most about him. And you can just tell, I've heard several interviews. I've sat in and co-hosted several interviews with Preston over the years, and it's always just consistent. It's always just a stream of information. It's and you can just tell it's coming from a heart-centered place, man. And that's the biggest thing. It's coming from his intentions are pure. He has no other intentions but other than getting the truth out. How many books is he up to? It's an inspiration. I'm thinking about starting my third book. I'm starting to compile my third book, and just to see him, like, his work he's put in, and it's a lot of work to put out a book, man. Just one, and he's done many.
Yeah, he's done many, and the other part about it for me is the fire to still continue to want to do it at that level, play at a high level. Like they talk about LeBron James still kind of hanging around the NBA, but playing at a high level, even though I'm not a LeBron fan. Jordan is the GOAT, just for everybody who might even been thinking or questioning it. Jordan is still the GOAT, but you got to respect someone who has this longevity and wants to put in the work and treat it like a high priority as far as getting the knowledge out there. He doesn't have to do this. At this point, he's done so many books and accumulated so much data that you could just take what he has so far, and that would be more than enough, and it'd be much appreciated for just what he's done so far. So to continue to see someone still dig into this and still be as fresh as when they first started is just awesome for me.
Yeah. I mean, Preston's one of those guys that like he's still kicking. He's he's got plenty of years left to do this. So it's just he's not gonna stop until the very all the way to. He's one of those guys that's not gonna retire. He can't do that. And I'm excited to see what he's gonna accomplish, but just to know, like, he is gonna be remembered far past the time that his body expires in this lifetime as one of the greats, as when there's a conversation that comes up about UFO researchers, his name's going to come up. His name's come up on some of the biggest podcasts out there, and people's mentioned him. So, not only he's been on them as a guest, but I've heard his name mentioned on some of the biggest podcasts out there. So he's a legend, man. No doubt.
And I look around and that, now that you say that, because that, of course, as I said, all the documentaries that I'd watched that were older, he was in every last one of them. And you have, being mentioned on that national level or being recognized is a big thing. And I also want to give a shout out because just the other day, I watched a News Nation interview with Ross Coulthard where our friend Melinda Leslie was brought up in conversation. I thought that was awesome. And the work that she's been doing out there in compiling data on the UFOs over in Sedona and this Magic Mountain or wherever this location is out there, where she gives tours. And a lot of people who have gone on tours, there's individuals in this audience right now who have been out with Melinda Leslie on some of these tours and have seen things when they've gone out there. And this was the focus of a News Nation story just the other day, the activity out in Sedona, Arizona. And I was like, I know they have to bring her up. I'm watching. I'm like, she has to come up. She's like doing all the work out there. And then eventually they did bring her name up, and I thought that was pretty awesome that those people are being recognized for the work that they're doing, and they're getting their flowers, even in a time where we are looking at potentially, the mainstream media cutting off, researchers and experiencers that we get to talk to all the time. But there's that little flash of hope that maybe that doesn't stay this way, or maybe they start turning this around where now they start bringing in the Melinda Leslies and the Preston Dennetts, because there's a place for their data, and it has to happen at some point, you would think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the job is not about being recognized, but it doesn't hurt to be recognized. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I was laughing because I was thinking they just did. I'm not gonna name the podcast or anything because it's that I noticed it, but they did a review of that conference I was at the other weekend in Wisconsin, and I'm listening there to review, and they're mentioning people throughout the thing, and I'm like, man, they're definitely gonna mention me, like I'm just feeling it. They get all the way to the end, and I'm like, oh, here it is, and they mention a dog that was there. They mentioned a dog that was there, Rob, and it ends without them mentioning me.
Wow.
I was like, man, they mentioned all those people there and a dog, but they didn't mention me. So when you were talking about that, it just brought that up. I thought it was funny. I thought share it with
And we're not going
the
to
group.
We're not going to share
What's
that
that?
podcast. I don't even know what the podcast is. You got to tell me behind the scenes, but we definitely don't want to promote someone that's not promoting our very own. Wow. So you know how I feel about stuff like that, man. Don't even get me started, man. When it comes time,
it's all good. I'd say I love everybody, and I love the podcast I'm talking about. So that's why I'm not gonna mention it. I thought it was just funny. I thought, and I messaged him in the background. I was like, dog, you mentioned the dog and not me, man. Come on, are you kidding me?
That says a lot. I mean, you could have been like, they just didn't mention me, or they mentioned this other person, but not me. You said they mentioned an animal, but didn't mention you, and that's where I would be offended. Yeah, we'll have to talk more about that. We'll talk about that off air because I would love to know more. But here's the thing. When you have a list of people like that, it's potentially possible that they just forgot to mention your name, and we'll just say that that's what happened. Because when you look at messages that are being delivered, and what if this person was this show, not the show itself, but was the conference televised? How did they see the conference? Were they there?
Oh yeah.
The person that was talking about it were there. Okay. All right. Well, hey, maybe I don't know. Here's what I'll say with that though. We support anything and anyone.
I don't have a lasting impression, man. I guess I don't have that lasting impression.
Yeah, anything and everything that comes from this show, man, is genuine, authentic, and that's why we work together, because I feel that your message and you getting out there is a genuine thing. It's selfless. People need to hear it, and maybe this person just didn't need to hear it. I don't know what the reason is, but you got it out there, which I think is an awesome thing. For one, are they going to? Is this something that they're going to re-release on video? Do you think, or do you think that this is you had to be there? The conference itself, is it more you had to be there?
I know one of mine was recorded, so I think they're going to release it over time, and they're already selling tickets for next year. So it's I couldn't be more supportive. It's my friend that started it and everything, and this is her first real year of doing it. So she had over 300. I think it was over 350 people there. So cool. She did a great job. I mean, it's a lot of cool people there, obviously, and drew the crowd. And yeah, there was, two of the people that was at that conference I met at the conference, they were here today for ceremonies. So it all
Well, that's awesome stuff, man. Right on time as we get ready to go ahead and go into our final break of the night right here on Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. This is Drew Banky right next to me with the After Hours wrap up. We got a lot more to go here. 30 more minutes, 30 minutos, 30 minutos. We want to see you right back here right after the break. Spaced Out Radio.
Dang,
All right, we are clear. We are clear. We are clear.
bilingual after hours, dude. Bilingual
Yeah,
after hours.
You might as well break it out if you got it, right? If you got it, might as well flaunt it, man. So
I don't have. I got
I what I gotta credit that. I mean, I'm my grandmother is Mexican,
do you live in California?
and I live in California, right? So these are all
You live in
Reasons why
California.
I should know the language. I should actually know it a lot better than I do. You know, but I've committed myself to making sure that I learn it completely. And so that's kind of what I've been doing here and there. Because I want to go, I've been to Mexico, you know, on a cruise, but I want to go into Mexico, you know, kind of looking for family and kind of reconnecting with family out there. But you got to be able to speak the language, you got to be fluent
Like
for that to
searching for him.
feel right. Yeah. Like some of my ancestors that didn't come over to America, right? So the ones that are still out there, I would like to kind of go down that family tree and kind of meet some people. A lot of my people are here in California on the Mexican side, Visalia, Exeter. So truthfully, pretty close to where I am right now. And so I just I made it a goal that I'm going to fluently learn the language so that I can go without a translator into the country and kind of just feel what it feels like, right? To kind of be a
I
native
feel it.
speaker of the
I'm with
language.
that. I'm with that, dude. It's tribal.
Yeah,
Tribal.
that's part of my whole thing, and what will hopefully bring me back
What
to the
it's
tribe
it's
at the
about
end.
it's that like drive, that instinctual drive to find find our tribe, find where we're from. Not only
Yeah.
like our spirit tribe, but like you want to find. I get it, dude. Being adopted, but listen, dude. That I posted a video last weekend right after. Remember me speaking last weekend, dude? At the end of the after hours, like, dude, there's something going on outside. I gotta go. Went outside and and filmed an event and reported to MUFON, and all this has happened since last weekend.
What?
But yeah, dude, there's
You
three
got
videos.
footage?
Everybody's listening, man. I'm telling you, trust me on this one. I've said it before. I say it again. Go to any of my social pages. I posted all these videos on all of them. I posted 3 videos from last weekend. There's over a 3-minute video where I shouldn't say a craft, a light travels from point A to point B, disappears, and then reappears at point A. It does it 3 times in a row. In a just over a 3-minute video, it did it 3 times. And then there's 2 other clips of that same night of lights that are acting weird. And then last night, I mean, it's been all over the news and everything, but I was outside and witnessed that big light beam that was in the sky. Rob, by the way, you got to mute those because there might be some curse words in it.
Okay, let me see what we can play before we remove this. Remove and add it.
That still shot, that's from last night, but there's a video on my social that's over it's over a minute long from last night. That's all from the conference.
Hold on.
I mean, it's a weird one. Oh, and there's a bunch of news, man. I'm doing a regression on Tuesday with Debs. I got like 4 different events that we're going to be targeting. Yeah, that's from last night. All these videos are on my social, guys. Head on over and check them out.
All right, make sure you guys do that. We're running out of time here. We're coming back here, and let's see, what do we got? 30 seconds here.
Oh yeah, and I got a bunch of new conferences coming up too.
All right, we got about 10 seconds here. Five seconds.
3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody. Welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the last 30 minutes of the show. Right here on the After Hours Radio Show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G, joined by Drew Benke with the After Hours wrap up. We had an awesome show tonight. Preston Dennett came in. Blue Minds, like always, hours 1 and 2. If you missed it, it's in the archive. It's absolutely free. Doesn't cost a dime. YouTube.com/Spaced Out Radio. As we jump back into the After Hours wrap up and talk more about Preston Dennett and just the man, the myth, the legend, the just, you know, making a difference in this community. And I think he's definitely good for as well, like for those new people coming in. If I could direct them any one place first, it would be to Preston Dennett, I think, because of the way that he explains the cases. He goes into detail, and he has them categorized in a way that's pretty simple for you to focus on one part of the phenomena versus just kind of throwing everything on your plate, right? If you've ever gone through his videos, that's kind of the sense that I get, where I could watch the top 10 scariest encounters, the top 10 most relevant encounters, and he has them broken down in a way where I think even someone brand new could sit there, binge watch, and get through it and have come up to speed, you know, with the decent amount of data, just the way that he presents it. So what do you think about his page? Have you been over there? Anything that you wanted to say about that?
I can't speak from experience on his page, but I can say that I totally agree on that. But also for those new people that are coming into the podcast and stuff like that are just now getting into it, you know, and I would say that, like, if you're under 50 interviews under your belt or somewhere around there, you know, that I would put that in the beginning thing. Preston is one of those guys that you want to get booked, and he's one that will book with new people. He loves talking to new people, especially new hosts and stuff like that. So people that's starting a new, he even helps out on that front. You know, people like that, because he's one of those guests you can just press the button and go. You know, and he really helps you out like that. You know, when you're starting to figure things out. I've seen it before with new radio hosts and stuff like that. People that are, you know, just got a couple under their belt. Preston is one of those guys that you want to have booked, because he is really going to help you expand and really make you look good, because, you know, he won't stop until you shut him down.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. Definitely a good asset for new shows that may be coming up, and doing it. You know, he's going to add a level of credibility to what you're doing, but it's up to you to do your part. You could have Preston Dennett every day of the week, but what are you doing with Preston Dennett? And I think that's the bigger question you should ask yourself before you go into doing the show. Make it worth something, make it matter, make it mean something, make it resonate, make it memorable for people that may show up.
For sure, because he has so much to dig out. Like, you can take him as far as you want to, you know. And I'm just saying, my point by saying all that, he is a credit to the community on so many different levels. That was the point I was getting at by saying that, because he is a credit not only to people who are just coming into UFO field, people who's been in the field for a while, because he has incidences and can remember stuff off the top of his head, stuff that I've never even heard of. Like, I'm I haven't even touched on any. I wouldn't consider myself a researcher or anything like that, but every time that I'm in in his presence, as far as on the radio and everything, I feel that I level up. Just hearing different things that's went on, and it's just amazing. And when he gets excited about an incident, it was a pretty good incident, because he has researched a ton of them. So
Exactly. That's true fact, man. And that's why I asked him. I wanted to know, because it would be perfect pairing to take someone like that has, gathered that much official data, and to team them up with a research team that's currently digging through data, because as we always say, historical data is good to be able to lean on that to kind of explain what it is you might be dealing with now. So I hope, even though there isn't not any official working relationship between Preston and some of these groups, I would hope that at least they have enough, they realize the value in maybe leaning into some of that data on their own, right? Because it's totally free on Preston's YouTube page. You could literally go there, and maybe 10 times that people saw spherical UFOs, right? You guys are categorizing, putting these UFOs in different classes. I could see where some of Preston's data would be helpful, I would think, in some of that,
sure.
some of that data.
I mean, he has compiled. I mean, he's been at this so long, and I know, just for the amount of time that I've been in this field, and the small amount that I know about what goes on, I know there's patterns to occurrences, there's patterns to abductions, there's pattern to crop circles, there's patterns to sightings, all these things. I would love to, that's where those are the questions where I would like to get to, what type of patterns have you seen, in the work, through all this time, because you have to seen something, what was it, like a age frame, is it more male, is it more female, things like that. And I'm sure he's recognized some type of I'm sure he's recognized several patterns as far as that goes. So
Yeah, and that's exactly the point there. Yeah, because the way that he categorizes the data in specific categories, it's very easy for him to sift through what he has put together and pull from a time where that answers whatever question that you might have. That's why it's cool to talk to him, because literally, regardless of what the sighting is or anything that has currently happened, he can easily pull from his database. I'm like, yeah, there's times where that happened many a times, and kind of give you a whole different outlook on what it is that you're wanting to know.
Yeah, how many times have Tic Tacs been? He's almost like a Chat GPT of UFOs. Like, how many times have Tic Tacs been found throughout history? And he can, boom. It's super impressive, man. It's super impressive.
Here's the thing with that. It's helpful because the government already has that level of data collection that they will never share with anyone. So to be able to have on our level, just grassroots on humanity side, an outlet where you can pull that level of data from also, that's what makes us formidable opponents to our government, is because we do have researchers on our side that have extensively dug into this and have just as much good data as this person that was manning these radar systems and things of that nature. So it's kind of like that. And that's why I say there's enough of within our community for us to really solve the puzzle by itself. If Preston, one person, has all that data, and you look around and the other people who are doing sort of the same thing, dude, there is way more data than is needed to kind of bring this to a close.
I totally agree, man. This is why I love this show. This is why I'm here on the weekends, because this is the type of conversations we have that are really that really do move the needle. I mean, I can't think of any other better way to put it, but that's what we're here to do. And this Preston is one of those main people that come on every time we sit down with him. He's gonna move people, maybe not from skeptic to believer, but he's definitely gonna move that one way or the other. And I think this episode was great, and I think the title of it was great. But I think we should change it, dude. I think it's 100%, man. I don't think there's no doubt in my mind that, especially, there's been a very active past couple weeks, man, and it's just I'm praying for everybody that's been affected from the storms. There's storms towards the east and everything, and there's just so much going on, but just be with it, man. Be with what's going on right now, and trust it. Trust what's going on is meant to be. Is all I got to say.
And even within the UFO world, I mean, you make a great point. And we haven't even really touched some of the conversations that have happened in the last couple of weeks. Kind of trying to save those because I don't want to just talk about them. I want to see where this goes. And I think there's still an element of where does this go with a couple of the more recent releases through News Nation. No real picture or how does this fit into this. So until we get to that point, we probably won't talk about what's currently going on, even though I'm kind of keeping a monitor on it. I just want to make sure that, just like you said, if we do have a conversation, if we sit and take the time to open our mouth and talk about these things, that they matter and that they fit in somewhere where it's going to at least get you to ask other questions at the very least, and then we can kind of move from there. With that being said, we got about 10 and a half minutes left. I'm going to get some news in, but I want to make sure that we that you have given audience anything and everything that you want to talk about here tonight.
No, I mean, there's that thing we talked about, and I shared some videos in the break about that big light that was in the sky. It was seen by many. Our friend Jim Goodall posted pictures of it that he took. I posted videos and still shots of it from last night. But I just want to say, while I had the chance, that the video does not do it justice, man. Like, it was one line of a light, something that took up like half of the sky. You see when you're standing outside, you see basically 180 degrees, from horizon to horizon. It stretched from pretty much a 45-degree arc down. That's how big it was, like in real life. And it just appeared out of nowhere, and it was there for over a minute. I understand I heard it was attached to Aurora Borealis, something. I heard all types of stuff about it today. It's been all over the news, but regardless of if it was connected to Aurora Borealis or it was an alien spaceship landing, it was an amazing thing to witness. I just have to say that. So I'll leave it at that. Please check it.
No, let's
check out
do
all
this
the videos and everything.
Send me the actual files, because I don't know if I can pull them from Facebook. I'll try, but if not, send them to me, and then I'll edit them together. That way we can just show them tomorrow and then speak to them during the break tomorrow. So be more prepared.
Cool. We're gonna show tomorrow. Cool.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Done deal. As I go ahead and say goodnight to Drew Banky, man. Appreciate you coming on in and being a part of the show as always. We will get together again tomorrow and do the exact same thing, man.
Much love. Talk to you later.
All right, man. Take care. That is Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap up. Like always, that's my guy, man. That's how we have to do it here on the show. We're going to go ahead and jump right on in to see if we can fit a news story in here tonight. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. But I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, UFO and weird news of the week. Couple weird stories. I want to go ahead and see if we can get through both. I'm going to try to get through this one first. This one's more compelling, and it is secret CIA files expose locations of 3 alien bases, and 2 of them are on Earth. The files claim that aliens not only exist, but are already stationed on our planet. It's not hard to believe if you think about USOs. It's probably where they are. This is an article by Brenna Cooper. For as long as humanity has been able to gaze up at the cosmos, we've been wondering, are we alone in the universe? Or is there any life out there? It's a question which has dominated our collective thoughts and the science fiction genre for decades. But if claims from one declassified CIA report are to be believed, it would appear that aliens not only exist, but have been living amongst us for quite some time. So grab your tinfoil hats, unfurl your Welcome Aliens banner, as it's time to unpack the latest arguments for extraterrestrial life existing. During the height of the Cold War, agents at the CIA left no stone unturned when it came to investigating methods to one-up the Soviet Union. This meant exploring some pretty wacky avenues, including research on mind control and fitting cats with listening devices. This such project, which falls under this category, is Stargate Project, which saw the CIA explore the possibility of remote viewing, an idea which individuals with psychic abilities could gather information about distant objects or people. So, files from the Stargate Project would later be declassified in 2000, which meant the public were able to learn about description of personal associated ET bases, and the documents are fascinating. According to one document, a test subject claimed to have experience of remotely visiting 3 alien bases, 2 of which were supposedly on Earth. So far, have run into 3 types of entities associated with bases at various locations within the solar system, the document reads. The test subject then goes on to describe the entities working inside each base, with some of the beings appearing to be more humanoid than others. On the Titan base, they encountered what appeared to be human scientists, while the 2 bases on Earth were staffed by beings with more extraterrestrial features, such as one being with a very large rounded shaped head, and another individual who was almost human but lacked definitive facial features. The test subject doesn't go into specific detail about what the bases look like, but adds that all beings were working on a variety of tasks, including working at a circular console. They also described one of the beings as an attractive female with brown shoulder-length hair, because this is obviously the most important details of intelligence gathering. The project was ultimately scrapped in 1995 after it was concluded that psychic powers aren't a useful tool for intelligence gathering, which seems a little obvious in hindsight, but hey, times were rough. But don't feel too disheartened, as researchers recently unveiled an exoplanet which shows the most promise of being hospitable to alien life. So, just don't go expect to find green men in suits. So with that being said, that remote viewing of the extraterrestrial bases during Project Stargate, I don't know. I think we know there's more to remote viewing than has been led to believe, so we don't think that they ever really gave up on Project Stargate. We know there are probably likely other abilities that human beings have that just have not been fully realized or tapped into. We have examples of them in everyday life all the time. So I don't really know how to feel about that. We have another story here that I don't think we will be able to finish, but let me try to fit it in here. We have mysterious giant structures that have discovered beneath the surface of Mars. Researchers think it could point towards a volcano. Researchers have found strange structures hidden beneath the surface of Mars, which may tell us more about the red planet. Before you get too excited that we found some kind of alien house, these structures are more concerned with space volcanoes. Mars already has the largest volcano in the solar system thanks to the presence of Olympus Mons, which is situated on a part of the planet which we call Tharsis Montes. It's home to several gigantic volcanoes, and with the ground beneath this place is where the researchers have made their discovery. They found an underground mass that's around 1,000 miles across and over 680 miles deep, and it could tell us more about how volcanic activity on Mars works. In their study, the researchers of the Delft University of Technology said that this shows that Mars might still have active movements happening inside it, making new volcanic things on the surface. The study was led by Dr. Bart Root, who explained more about the underground discovery and what it can mean for Mars and our understanding of the planet. He said these dense structures could be volcanic in origin or could be compacted material due to ancient impacts. There are around 20 features of varying sizes that we have identified dotting around the areas surrounding the North Polar Cap, one of which resembles the shape of a dog. There seems to be no trace of them at the surface. However, through gravity data, we have a tantalizing glimpse into the older history of the northern hemisphere of Mars. As their research says, what they found looks like a plume head and is currently flowing upwards towards the lithosphere to generate active volcanism in the geological future. In more understandable terms, for those who aren't super duper science experts, if a mantle plume made it up to the surface, then it could result in a new volcanic activity on the planet. This latest research into what's going on Mars comes after the NASA Curiosity rover spotted some well-preserved structures on the planet's surface, which have an appearance compared to waffle or honeycomb. Planetary geologist Catherine O'Connell Cooper said that the Curiosity had shown the ground to be full of rough, gnarly material, which can be tricky targets for contact science instruments. They found something on space called Ghost Mountain Butte, which has been earmarked as a potential site of further exploration for the Curiosity team. Isn't space wonderful? There's always more to discover. And I think that is the biggest part of that story. There's more to discover. I think if you listen to Preston Dennett tonight, he's discovered a lot of stuff, researched a lot of stuff. So we got to thank him for what he has done for the community and continues to do. Keep doing the work out there, Preston Dennett. Keep doing the work. We will keep appreciating it. We also want to thank Drew Mankey for coming on in with the After Hours wrap-up. We want to thank Steve Stockton, Tales Untold Mr. Person Mysteries. We also want to thank the man that you hear right there, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. He is the man that rocks us out each and every week, because he tells us, never say never again, because yes, the phenomena is real, very real, which means anything and everything is possible. If you enjoyed the show tonight and what we talked about, make sure you show your appreciation. Also throw your horns up. Thanks for tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. What's that, you ask? We own the night. This show is copyright SOR Media Ventures Limited, Spaced Out Radio. It has been a pleasure, once again, serving you as your host. I am Mr. Rob G. This is the After Hours Radio Show, and to all you space travelers out there, this is not a goodbye nor a farewell. However, you can best believe, as we get ready to go off air for the night, we will be back doing the same thing, bringing the same heat, moving the needle right here next time. Make sure you're here. We'd love to see you back. Have a great rest of your night, guys. Take care. Awesome sauce. Awesome sauce. Awesome show tonight, guys. Really appreciate you guys coming on out and like you do and doing what you do each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio, especially here at the After Hours Radio Show, Saturdays and Sundays. Once again, 8 p.m. Pacific until 11 p.m. right here on Spaced Out Radio. Tell a friend, bring a friend next time. Let's take a moment. If you haven't already done it, I'm sure you guys already have. Let's take a moment. Let's get the likes up as high as we can on this show tonight. Make sure that this conversation with Preston gets out there, jugs the algorithm, and kind of spreads the conversation and moves the needle that much more. That's what you guys can do tonight to help move the needle. Just go ahead, take a moment, hit that like button. Also, if it's your first time, consider hitting that subscribe button and also the notification bell. We have real conversations going on here all the time. We also have them going on over on my personal channel, which is youtube.com/@MrRobG, like it shows right there on the screen. Make sure you come over and show your love there. Put in the comment or something that you came over from Spaced Out Radio. Would totally appreciate the love, guys. Outside of that, we're going to go ahead and get up out of here for the night, and I will see you back here tomorrow, same time, same place. As we get up out of here, we want retribution. That's how we close the show each and every night. Take care, guys.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.